Hundreds of thousands of international visitors and well over 1 million cross-border journeys were expected during the 2026 World Cup. But almost nobody talked about the biggest operation of the entire tournament, because it wasn't happening inside the stadiums. It was happening at the borders. For the first time in history, a World Cup wasn't hosted by one country. It was hosted by 3. And for one summer, 3 nations had to figure out how to move millions of people across their shared lines together. The United States, Canada, and Mexico co-hosted 104 matches, 78 in the US, 13 in Canada, 13 in Mexico, 48 teams, 5 million fans projected inside stadiums. But here's what almost nobody prepared for. A US visa doesn't get you into Canada, a Canadian ETA doesn't get you into Mexico. 3 different immigration systems, 3 different sets of documents, 3 different sets of rules, hundreds of thousands of international travelers, and millions of individual border crossings, airport arrivals, and domestic journeys had to move through 3 different systems in just a few weeks. Imagine a fan trying to follow their team's group stage. Match 1 in Guadalajara, Match 2 in Toronto, Match 3 in Los Angeles. 3 countries, 3 sets of paperwork, 3 border crossings in 10 days. For US entry, a valid visa or ESTA authorization required at least 72 hours in advance. For Canada, an electronic travel authorization, a separate application, a separate fee. For Mexico, a forma migratoria multiple required for any stay longer than 72 hours. None of these overlap. None of these transfer. A ticket to all 3 countries' matches meant navigating all 3 systems separately, with no guarantee any of them would move at the same speed. US Customs and Border Protection coordinated a unified command structure across land, air, and sea entry points specifically for the tournament. Expanded staffing, streamlined lanes, real-time monitoring, designed to prevent the kind of bottleneck that could turn a border crossing into a missed match. Canada published live wait time trackers for its 28 busiest land crossings, updated in real time, so fans could see exactly how long the line was before they got in it. According to the National Immigration Forum, the Trump administration also introduced something new, specifically for this tournament, in November 2025, a system called the FIFA Pass. It let ticket holders receive priority visa interview appointments. It didn't guarantee entry. Every applicant still went through the same vetting as anyone else, but it meant fans with tickets in hand weren't stuck waiting months for an interview that might come after the match had already been played. Think about what this actually required. Trusted traveler programs, the fast-track lanes normally reserved for frequent business travelers, were suddenly being used by families following a national team across a continent. Volunteers stationed near border checkpoints and transit hubs helped confused visitors figure out which document they needed for which country. Because the paperwork alone was enough to make even experienced travelers panic. Families didn't just cross once, they crossed twice, sometimes 3 times. Chasing their team through the group stage, landing in one country, watching a match, immediately researching the entry requirements for the next, and doing it all again days later. This had never been attempted at this scale in World Cup history. Not in 2018, hosted by one country. Not in 2022, hosted by one country. This was the first World Cup where a fan could plausibly wake up in Mexico City, sleep in Toronto 48 hours later, and watch their team play a 3rd match in Los Angeles before the week was over, legally required to satisfy 3 separate governments to do it. But it wasn't uniformly smooth, and it would be dishonest to pretend it was. The United States enforced travel restrictions affecting citizens of 39 countries during the tournament window, including fans from nations that had actually qualified for the World Cup. The American Immigration Council reported that a Somali referee named 2025 Referee of the Year by the Confederation of African Football was denied U.S. entry over vetting concerns, despite already holding a valid visa issued by the State Department. One of several documented cases of players, staff, and officials facing extended questioning at ports of entry. And here's the detail that matters most for this story specifically. Because Canada and Mexico were also hosting matches, thousands of fans who were nervous about entering the United States didn't have to choose between attending the World Cup and staying home. They rerouted. They followed their team's matches in Canada and Mexico instead, deliberately avoiding US land and air entry altogether. In a strange way, that's still a story about 3 borders functioning as one system, just not in the uplifting way anyone predicted. The tri-national hosting model didn't erase the tension at the US border, but it did give fans an option that has never existed at a World Cup before. If one border felt too risky, Another host country was only a flight away. Despite all of it, the system largely held. Vast numbers of people moved across 3 national borders in a matter of weeks for a sporting event, without the kind of large-scale system collapse that logistics experts had warned about for years. That's not a small thing. Coordinating passport control, customs declarations, agricultural inspections, and security screening across 3 governments, 3 legal systems, 3 political climates, for the largest simultaneous international arrival event in modern sports. And having it broadly function is a genuine operational achievement, whatever else is happening around it. The volunteers who stood at transit hubs helping fans figure out a Mexican tourist card versus a Canadian ETA weren't making headlines. Neither were the CBP officers processing entry declarations during a surge, or the Canadian border agents updating wait time boards so a family in a car with a toddler could plan around a 2-hour line instead of getting stuck in it. None of that is glamorous. None of it involves a goal, a trophy, or a viral celebration. But it's the reason a fan could plausibly watch a match in 3 different countries in the same week. Something that had literally never been possible at a World Cup before this one. So did football erase borders for one summer? Not entirely. Not for everyone. For some fans, this tournament made borders more visible than ever, a reminder of exactly which passport they were holding and what that passport could or couldn't get them. But for hundreds of thousands of people, this was still the summer they crossed into a country they'd never visited, stood in a stadium they'd only seen on television, and did it again days later in a different country entirely, legally, safely, and somehow, mostly, on schedule. 3 governments with different immigration systems, different security priorities, and different political realities still managed to move enormous numbers of people for one tournament. That's not a fairy tale about borders disappearing. It's something more real, proof that even when systems are strained, even when policies exclude some and welcome others, ordinary people still find a way to show up for something they love, one border crossing at a time. This is the side of the World Cup nobody puts in the highlight reel. The logistics, the borders, the invisible systems that decide who gets to show up at all. If you want the stories behind the story, subscribe now. New videos go up here regularly, and this is exactly the kind of coverage you won't find anywhere else. If this opened your eyes to something you didn't know, share it with someone who's heading to a match. They'll want to see this before they cross a single border.